For 7 years, I had been married to Leo. For 7 years, I had waited. Finally, he brought it up himself, the idea of a vacation over the national holiday. A substitute for the wedding we never had, he'd said, a casual flick of his words meant to finally silence my years of gentle nagging. That way, you can stop mentioning it. My heart soared. I dove into a flurry of planning, my days filled with visions of sun-drenched beaches and azure waters. I researched boutique hotels and curated itineraries, my excitement bubbling over until he vetoed everything with a single, dismissive wave. My mother wants to go to the mountains, to visit a temple, he announced, not meeting my eyes. We shouldn't go somewhere too far. Hesitation crept in, a familiar cold shadow. I looked at him, words catching in my throat, my finger still tracing the name of the coastal city, North Shore, on my tablet screen. Leo patted my head, a gesture that was meant to be comforting but felt condescending. Be reasonable, Lena. My mother is getting older. So I did what I always did. I yielded. I cancelled the flights and the beachfront hotel in North Shore, my dream destination, and booked the mountain retreat he had chosen. The night before our departure, a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. I had to ask him, just one more time. You will be coming with us tomorrow, won't you? He shifted away from me on the bed, angling his phone so the screen's glow was hidden from my view. What a silly question. Go to sleep. But Leo broke his promise. I spent the entire day at the airport, a solitary figure in a sea of holiday travelers. I waited as my flight was delayed, then rescheduled, then delayed again. With a sense of dread, I opened my phone and saw a new post from his secretary, a woman named Zoe. Holiday bonus from the boss. The caption read, followed by a cheerful emoji. The picture was of 2 airline tickets to North Shore. She had tried to obscure the details, but my eyes locked onto a single, glaring letter exposed on one of the passenger names, a capital L. For Leo. In that instant, a fragile thing inside me, something I had been nurturing for 7 years, finally shattered. I knew it was time to let go. The airline's final boarding call echoed through the terminal, pulling me from my trance. I switched off my phone, my movements stiff and robotic, and walked onto the plane. The seat beside me remained empty for the entire flight, a vacant space I stared at until the flight attendant's gentle touch on my shoulder informed me we had landed. When I switched my phone back on, a message from Leo was waiting. My mother fell ill. Something urgent also came up at the office. I didn't have time to tell you. You go ahead and have fun on your own. I typed back a single word, okay. A photo arrived almost instantly, a rare, immediate reply from him. It was a picture of the lobby of his office building. Still grinding away at work, his message read. Eat whatever you want, buy whatever you like. Don't deprive yourself. Okay, I replied again. I shut off my phone and dragged my suitcase toward the airport exit. It was the last flight of the day, and the world outside was cloaked in darkness. A fine, cold drizzle began to fall, the chill seeping into my bones. My hand instinctively reached for my phone to call him, my thumb hovering over his name before I forced it down, jamming the phone back into my pocket. It took an astonishing amount of strength just to not make that call. I stood by the curb for a long time before hailing a taxi. When I finally checked my phone again, a new post from Zoe had appeared on my timeline. The big boss is so busy, but that's okay, we know how to steal a moment for ourselves. The accompanying photo was a stunning city skyline at night, a kaleidoscope of neon lights glittering against the dark. But as I zoomed in, my blood ran cold. In the reflection of a massive floor-to-ceiling window, I saw the corner of a hotel room. And on the floor, by the bed, sat a pair of men's leather shoes. The silver buckle on one of them glinted, and nestled within its design was a tiny, familiar L. Even though I had prepared myself, the sight was like 1,000 needles pricking my eyes. I blinked back the burning pain and, with a trembling finger, I liked the post. Almost immediately, my phone rang. It was Leo. After a long moment, I slid my finger to answer. How are things over there? He asked, his voice as smooth and warm as ever. The weather forecast said it was raining. His voice, once my comfort, now felt like 1,000 tiny cuts, each word making it harder to breathe. My heart hammered against my ribs. Was all I could manage. Have you eaten? I said nothing, letting the silent tears trace paths down my cheeks. You have fun for a few days. I'll come get you as soon as I have a free moment. There's a huge project at the company. Be a good girl, Lena. I pressed my lips together, choking back a sob. Do you remember what day it is today? There was a distinct pause on his end. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost some of its warmth. Our 7th wedding anniversary, he said slowly. And, your birthday. So the gift your assistant bought from France last month, it wasn't for me. As the words left my mouth, the wall clock in my hotel room chimed softly. It was past midnight. The man's voice was still gentle, but the words that followed were like shards of ice. Lena, I've been incredibly busy with work. It just slipped my mind. I'll make it up to you when you get back. He didn't explain where the 6-figure gift had gone. He never did. As he often said, there was no point in doing meaningless things. To Leo, explanations were meaningless. I didn't argue. I managed a small, hollow laugh. Okay. I spent that night staring into the darkness, finally piecing together a truth I had long avoided: Leo didn't love me. His past girlfriends had all been vibrant, sunny creatures, girls who radiated a bright, infectious energy. Girls like Zoe. I'd seen the way she laughed, a flash of golden sun piercing through a murky sea. I'd met her a few times when Leo had sent her to our home to retrieve documents. I had sensed the threat in her careless, confident intrusions. Leo, a man obsessed with order and cleanliness, had allowed her to rummage through his private study for a minor contract. When she couldn't find it, he had patiently guided her over the phone. When she had accidentally shattered a vase, his first call was to me, telling me not to blame her. Leo knew I loved him. He'd known it since our university days. Every argument we ever had ended with me being the one to apologize, to seek reconciliation. He saw me as a suitable spouse, quiet, undemanding, my life revolving entirely around his. The day I graduated, he agreed to my proposal of marriage. Lena, he had said, his deep-set eyes gazing into mine, if we get married now, we'll have nothing. Are you still willing to be with me? Young and full of blind hope, I had looked at the handsome young man before me and nodded without hesitation. We spent $9 on a marriage license. There was no ring, no wedding, no celebration. For years afterward, the absence of that day was a constant, quiet ache. He knew how desperately I wanted to go to North Shore. But he always had an excuse. The company was in a critical growth phase, he couldn't get away. He knew that was all he had to say to make me relent. And for years, I had. When his startup was struggling, he needed me in the corporate world, a shark in a tailored suit fighting his battles. So I fought. When his company stabilized, he decided it was time for me to be a homemaker. Without a word, I submitted my resignation. But none of it, not the sacrifice nor the devotion, had ever been enough to warm his heart. I lay awake, watching raindrops glitter against the dark windowpane as the past decade played out in my mind. Driving to pick him up in the rain, the umbrella always angled over his head, leaving my own shoulder to get soaked. Cleaning up the cold leftovers from his birthday parties that I wasn't truly a part of. Going to the hospital alone after the miscarriage, a grief I had to bear in silence. Even trying to broach the subject of trying for another baby was met with his weary disinterest. The montage of memories ended, inevitably, with Zoe's triumphant social media post. Her eyes curved into crescents, her smile revealing two small, sharp canines. She looked so much like the first love Leo had spoken of for 10 years, the one he never got over. Clara. He had never forgotten her, and now he was pouring all his affection onto her substitute. They had gone to North Shore. The place I had dreamed of for a decade. The tears I had been holding back finally began to fall, hot and relentless. He knew. He knew how much I wanted to go there, how much I wanted to go there with him. And he had chosen to go with her. All while feeding me lies about being buried in work. I cried and I laughed, a broken, hysterical sound in the silent room. And in that moment I understood. Leo didn't love me. He had never loved me. I checked out of the hotel. I booked a flight for the next day. To North Shore. I had to see it for myself, this place that had occupied my dreams for nearly 10 years. What was so special about it? I went to the most popular spot, Stardust Lake. Legend said it was a tear left behind by a god as he departed the mortal world, and that couples who boated on its waters would be blessed with a lifetime of happiness. I paid for a boat and rowed across it 3 times. The scenery was pleasant, but ordinary. I shook my head, paid the vendor, and disembarked. I went to North Shore's most famous restaurant. The food was not to my taste. I smiled bitterly. Why had I been so obsessed for so long? As I was about to leave, a host's voice boomed from the floor below. They were holding a special holiday celebration. I turned to go, but a clear, bright voice coming through the microphone stopped me in my tracks. It was familiar. The voice was offering blessings for the country, and I started to walk away again, only to be frozen in place by the girl's final words. Leo, she declared, her voice ringing with emotion, I love you. My table was by a window on the 2nd floor, offering a clear view of the stage below. My eyes scanned the crowd and landed on him. The man who was supposed to be working overtime. Leo stood before the stage, a look of mild surprise on his face that perfectly matched his attire. Since our marriage, he had lived in suits and ties, his casual wear consisting of business casual polos. But today, he looked like a freshman just starting university, boyish and impossibly handsome. This was not a look I had ever curated for him. This was Zoe's touch. I watched, my heart a leaden weight in my chest, desperately hoping he would reject her, shut her down publicly. If he did, I could pretend none of this had ever happened. I could go back to playing the part of his devoted wife. My palms were slick with sweat, my nails digging into my skin as I stared, unblinking. A flicker of surprise in Leo's eyes gave way to something else. With a sudden, athletic leap, he was on the stage. In front of everyone, he pulled Zoe into his arms and kissed her, a deep, passionate kiss that sent the crowd into a frenzy of applause. I started clapping too, my hands moving mechanically as my eyes burned. Step by step, a twisted smile on my face, I descended the stairs. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching them cling to each other, a portrait of 2 people lost in the throes of a fiery romance. When the host asked if anyone else had something to say, I raised my hand. Every head turned towards me. In that moment, I saw the panic flash in Leo's eyes. And in Zoe's, a look of brazen confidence. Leo dropped Zoe's hand and rushed towards me. I took the microphone that was offered to me, my voice laced with a theatrical mockery as I called out to him. Oh, I don't have much to say. I'd just like to gift the gentleman a one-way ticket to single life. A wave of whispers rippled through the audience. Leo grabbed my arm, his grip tight. Zoe hurried to my side, her explanation clumsy and transparent. Lena, what are you doing here? We were just part of the event's performance. Please don't misunderstand. I smiled and coolly removed Leo's hand from my arm. His brow furrowed. The company has a project here, he said, his voice low and urgent. This is all for work. Aren't you supposed to be working overtime? I asked, reaching up to wipe a smudge of red lipstick from his mouth. Is kissing your assistant part of your overtime duties now? His jaw tightened. Lena, don't be unreasonable. I turned and walked away. I heard Zoe try to follow, but Leo stopped her. This is work. Don't let her ruin the event. As I walked towards the exit, my mind was a chaotic yet strangely clear space. I overheard Zoe's worried whisper, what if she makes a scene? And Leo's confident reply, don't worry. She won't. She never does. He was right. For 10 years, I had meticulously maintained the facade of our marriage, desperately protecting my fragile dignity. Zoe wasn't the first. There had been others, each one a pale imitation of his first love, Clara. I knew Leo was still obsessed with his white moonlight, so I learned to tolerate it, to swallow my pain. He had always been discreet enough not to bring them home. But this time was different. This time, he had brought Zoe into our house. They worked together in his study, and when I brought them tea, I was instructed to knock and leave the tray outside the door. The thought brought a sharp, clarifying sting. I pulled out my phone and dialed his number. He answered on the third ring. Before he could speak, I cut him off. "Leo," I said, my voice steady, "let's get a divorce." The 10 years I had spent revolving around you, it was surprisingly easy to let go. I used to think that losing Leo would mean losing my own life. But now, I was just tired. So very tired. It was time to give up. Leo was stunned into silence for a moment. Then, a soft, condescending chuckle. He was always like this with me, calm, composed, in control. It was that very composure that had saved me once. It was the first day of my sophomore year. The public bus I was on swerved violently when a passenger attacked the driver, and the entire vehicle tipped over, plunging into the river. We were thrown into a maelstrom of churning water and chaos. Many were knocked unconscious on impact. Cold river water flooded in. Blood trickled down my forehead, my consciousness fading. Through the murky haze, I heard a voice yelling, "Don't fall asleep. Everyone, stay awake." I forced my eyes open and saw a young man, Leo, clinging to a railing, stretching desperately for the emergency hammer on the window. The water was rising fast, the bus sinking tail first. I coughed and sputtered, the cries for help around me growing fainter. I watched him hold his breath, his face turning red as he slammed the hammer against the glass again and again until it finally shattered. He squeezed through the opening. By then, the bus was almost fully submerged. As my vision blurred and my hands feebly reached upwards, he turned back. For a split second, I saw him hesitate, a look of decision hardening his features. Then he dove back, grabbed my arm, and pulled me from the sinking wreckage. The nurses later told me that I had clung to his hand all night in the hospital, refusing to let go even in sleep. He had saved me. In an accident where only the two of us survived, he had chosen to save me. After that, I became his shadow. My parents had died when I was young, besides them, no one had ever risked their life for me. And because of that, Leo believed I could never leave him. He believed I wouldn't survive without him. So when I said the word divorce, the sound of his breathing stopped. Then he laughed again, a light, dismissive sound. "Lena, do you have any idea what you're saying? A divorce? What would you even do without me?" I could hear party music in his background. A woman's voice, distant but clear, called out, "Leo, come on. It's time to cut the cake." It was Zoe. Leo continued, his voice dropping into a warning tone. "Lena, you know me. Once I walk away, it's over between us. For good." "I know," I said calmly. "That's why I'm asking for a divorce." "Go home first," he said, his patience wearing thin. "We'll talk when you've calmed down." "Fine, I'll wait for," I was going to say I'd wait for him at the Civil Affairs Bureau, but he hung up before I could finish. My fingers, still clutching the phone, turned white. Zoe called, and he didn't even grant me the courtesy of finishing a sentence. I leaned against the wall, a wave of nausea washing over me. I stayed at the hotel for 5 days, waiting for the holiday rush to subside before flying home. The moment I walked through the door of our shared house, I sent Leo a message. He came home very late that night. I was sitting on the sofa in the dark when he unlocked the door. He stepped inside, shedding his leather shoes, and frowned. "Why aren't my slippers here?" he asked, his voice sharp with annoyance. A moment later, another complaint. "And my loungewear isn't hanging up." For years, laying out his slippers and hanging his fresh clothes by the door was a ritual. Tonight, I had no desire to perform it. I watched him silently as he loosened his tie and walked towards me, a rare flicker of anger in his eyes. "It's been days. Are you still angry? How long are you going to keep this up?" He tossed his jacket onto the sofa and sank into the cushions, massaging his temples. I pushed the divorce agreement I had prepared across the coffee table towards him. "Sign it." I'm not asking for much, just what is rightfully mine. Leo snatched the papers, his eyes scanning them before a smirk appeared on his face. Lena, you have a big appetite. You're asking for half of my assets. Only half of your personal fixed assets. I'm not touching the company. I've already compromised. My voice was calm and steady. The smirk vanished from Leo's face. Are you sure about this? Without me, your life of luxury is over. You won't be buying $10,000 bags or driving $1,000,000 cars anymore. I held out a pen to him. It doesn't matter. If those things were what I cared about, I wouldn't have married you when you had nothing. He tossed the agreement aside. I need to think about it, he grumbled, before disappearing into the bedroom. I sat alone in the living room all night. The next morning, the doorbell rang, pulling me from my stupor. I opened it to see Zoe's bright, smiling face. Good morning, Lena. Is Leo home? Why isn't he at work yet? She placed a bag of breakfast on the dining table. I immediately noticed one of the porridge containers was sprinkled with green onions. He doesn't eat green onions, I said, the words slipping out from force of habit. Oh, Zoe said, her voice dropping to a whisper. I didn't know. He always ate it when I bought it for him before. She looked at me, a sliver of pity in her eyes. You must be so tired, Lena. I knew what I must look like, my eyes bloodshot, my face pale and drawn. Why don't you just let go? Zoe continued, speaking as if to herself. Leo is tired too. You're both so miserable, why not set each other free? I stared at her, watching her expression suddenly turn dark and intense. Leo has been making mistakes at work constantly these past few days. That event you ruined? It should have brought in millions. Now, we're lucky if we can even keep the contract. But he never tells you these things. Lena, being with you is holding him back. I smiled faintly, raising an eyebrow. And so? Zoe picked up the divorce agreement from the floor. My social media posts were set so only you could see them, Lena. All those late nights at the office, all those events, all those business dinners. I was the one with him. But you seemed completely oblivious. I've never met such a clueless woman. But when you showed up at North Shore, I knew. You finally understood. A divorce is the best thing for both of you. My hands trembled. She was right. I knew about all of it. I had known, but I had chosen to numb myself, to pretend it wasn't happening, telling myself that as long as Leo still came home, I had a chance. Now, Zoe had shattered my carefully constructed denial. Suddenly, I felt like a clown, a pathetic character in the drama of their lives. I turned to leave, then paused. Let's see if you have what it takes to warm his heart. Zoe's sunny demeanor returned in an instant. Her voice was bright and clear. Oh, Leo loves me. And when you're the one who is loved, you don't have to work so hard to warm anyone's heart. I left the house, my feet carrying me aimlessly until I found myself standing in front of Leo's mother's apartment. She was a devout Buddhist and lived separately from us, but as her daughter-in-law, I visited her every few weeks. She heard my knock and fumbled her way to the door. As she opened it, I stood there, the words I needed to say caught in my throat. The elderly woman tilted her head, her grip on my hand tightening. Lena, my dear, have you been wronged? The tears I'd been holding back began to fall. She quickly pulled me inside. Was it Leo? Did he bully you again? You tell me, and I'll go give him a piece of my mind. I hugged her tightly. No, Mom, it's nothing. I just missed you. How have you been feeling? She patted my back gently. My body is strong. I haven't even had to go to the hospital much lately. My mind went blank. Another lie from Leo. His mother wiped my tears away. Let's not cry. I still have those coconut candies you like. One of my old students brought them when he visited. I saved them especially for you. She started fumbling towards a cabinet, and I rushed to stop her. Her eyes were a milky white, completely blind. My mind flashed back to the car accident 5 years ago. We were on our way to the temple. She'd said she'd cut her finger while chopping vegetables, a bad omen. and wanted to pray. I went with her. On the highway, another car with failed brakes slammed into us. In that crash, she lost her sight, and I lost our child. I remembered the chaos in the hospital, the doctor shouting, "Where is the family? Where is her husband? How can he not be here at a time like this?" I had stared at the empty doorway of the emergency room, and with a shaking hand, signed the consent form for the DNC myself. After that, my mother-in-law, who had always been kind to me, became even more so, constantly telling me how sorry she was, that it was her fault. I never blamed her. Perhaps, in some strange way, fate was helping me. I finally calmed down enough to tell her that I was getting a divorce. The old woman didn't say anything for a long time. She just stood there, frozen, before letting out a long sigh. I knew it. I always knew a man with a heart like Leo's could never hold on to someone as good as you. Tears welled in her cloudy eyes. It's just that our time as mother and daughter was so short, Lena. Whatever Leo did wrong, I'll scold him for it. I can't bear to lose you. She gripped my hand tightly, making it impossible for me to say anything more. What a pity, what a pity. Just last night, I dreamt of a child coming to our home. I thought it might be you and Leo's child. On the way back, my mind was a fog. I must have collapsed on the street, because I woke up in a hospital. I slowly blinked, my eyes struggling to focus. I saw Leo. And standing beside him, looking furious, was Zoe. When he saw I was awake, a genuine joy lit up his face, a light I hadn't seen in years. He couldn't hide the smile that touched the corners of his eyes. He gently helped me sit up and handed me a glass of water. "You're pregnant," he said, his voice soft with wonder. "The doctor said you're 2 months along. How could you be so careless not to know?" My hand went to my stomach. Pregnant. The child I had longed for years had come at this impossible moment. Leo had already brought his mother to the hospital. She fumbled for my hand. "Thank the heavens, you're all okay. Lena, no more talk of divorce. You hear? You're going to be parents now." Her voice was thick with emotion. "The ancestors have blessed us. The Lee family finally has an heir." I returned to that house in a daze. Leo was a changed man. He cancelled most of his meetings and stayed home to care for me. When I brought up the divorce again, he simply tore up the papers without a word. "You're pregnant now," he said calmly. "I can't leave you." He stayed by my side constantly, but wherever he went, Zoe was never far behind, a persistent shadow. My morning sickness was so severe I had to be hospitalized. Leo stayed with me, working from a chair by my bed, barely sleeping. Zoe's patience finally snapped. "Leo, several senior employees have already quit. We've lost multiple contracts. Are you really going to let the company fall apart?" Leo glanced at me. "I know what's important right now. And Lena is what's important. But there's no love between you anymore." Zoe shrieked, pointing at me. "A child won't fix that. You won't be happy." "Be quiet," Leo snapped. His command had no effect. "Leo, you told me you loved me. Why are you taking care of her like this now? You were so close to being divorced." "My divorce is none of your business. Did I ever make you any promises?" Leo's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Was it you? Did you say something to Lena?" Zoe's face went pale, but she lifted her chin defiantly. "I only told her the truth. I was doing it for her own good." The sharp crack of a slap echoed in the quiet room. Leo, radiating a cold fury I had never seen before, stared down at her. "When did it become your place to interfere in my family matters? No wonder Lena was so insistent on a divorce. It was you." Tears streamed down Zoe's beautiful face. She clutched her swelling cheek, looking at the man who had become a stranger to her. "Leo, you hit me? For her?" A cruel smile touched Leo's lips. "She is my wife. What are you to me?" Zoe couldn't bear to hear any more. She turned and fled, sobbing. I felt nothing. "You were too cruel to her," I said softly. Leo's composed mask slipped back into place. He checked my foredrip. She needs to learn a lesson about wanting things that don't belong to her. I pulled my hand from his grasp. But you were the one who gave her hope in the first place. The designer clothes, the expensive bags, the suburban villa he had bought her, weren't those all part of the dream he was selling? But for a man with a fickle heart, another's tears were no different from rain on the pavement. Leo leaned closer, his eyes pleading. Can we stop fighting, please? He thought that, just like before, a small show of vulnerability would be enough for me to forgive him. This time, I shook my head. No. We're still getting a divorce. Leo gritted his teeth, forcing a smile. You can't get a divorce while you're pregnant. I smiled back at him. The law states the husband cannot file for divorce. The wife still can. He scoffed. Do you want your child to be born without a father? The room fell silent. That, I said finally, would be better than having an irresponsible one. I looked him straight in the eye, my voice filled with a gravity he had never heard from me before. I know I was never the one you loved. I was just your most convenient option. Now, I'm letting you go. And I'm letting myself go. I'll have a new agreement drawn up. I'll walk away with nothing. But I am keeping the child. Leo let out a bitter laugh. You've been a housewife for years. You're completely disconnected from the professional world. How will you support a child with no money? I shook my head. For the past few years, I've been learning to trade stocks. I've made some money. It's not a lot, but it's enough to support me and my child. His eyes narrowed. You learned to trade stocks? When? I nodded. During every late night you worked. Every day you were on a business trip. Every moment you weren't by my side. I had to find something to do, so your indifference wouldn't drive me insane. I started making a profit within 3 years. My broker said I have a gift for it. You see? We've been together for 10 years, and you don't even know what I do with my time. Zoe was right. There's nothing left between us. Forcing it will only destroy us both. Leo's brow was deeply furrowed. He suddenly took off his gold-rimmed glasses. For the first time, I thought I saw the glint of tears in his eyes. But I don't want to lose you, he whispered. I'm so used to you being there. I can't imagine a home without you. Lena, I know I was wrong. He reached out, tentatively trying to take my hand. I stared out the window at the falling leaves. Autumn had arrived. The world was changing, shedding the old to make way for the new. I had decided to live for myself. Leo effectively placed me under house arrest. He took my keys, my credit cards, all under the guise of letting me rest and focus on the pregnancy. But the prison I had lived in for 10 years was one of my own making. Now that my mind was free, no walls could hold me. That night, I went to the kitchen, soaked a towel in cooking oil, and set fire to the living room curtains. Watching the flames lick upwards, a wild, brilliant smile spread across my face. This was me. This was the real me. Decisive, passionate, fierce. How had I let myself become that timid, anxious woman who lived in constant fear? The smoke alarm shrieked. Leo got the alert and raced back from the office. His calls came one after another, and I rejected every one. I watched the fire, laughing through my tears. He pounded on the front door, forgetting in his panic that the key was in his own pocket. When he finally fumbled the door open, I had already collapsed on the floor from smoke inhalation. Firefighters and paramedics rushed in and carried me out. Leo ran alongside the gurney, clutching my hand, begging me to hold on. I forced my eyes open and looked at him. For a fleeting second, I was back in that river, on that summer day. You saved my life once, I rasped through the smoke. Now, I'm returning the favor. We're even. The oxygen mask was placed over my face, and I could speak no more. As they loaded me into the ambulance, Leo just stood there, a solitary figure watching me disappear. The news reported a fire in a luxury villa caused by a gas leak from an aging pipe. One person was being treated for injuries. I woke up in the hospital to a room full of people. I recognized several of them as lawyers from Leo's company. Leo himself sat on the sofa, silently staring at a document in his hands. His usually immaculate suit was wrinkled, his hair was a mess, and a dark stubble covered his jaw. Seeing me awake, he immediately brought me a glass of water. I shook my head and pushed his hand away. A flicker of pain crossed his face before he set the glass down and placed a stack of papers in front of me. "This is a revised agreement," he said, his voice hoarse. "See if there's anything you want to change." I pushed myself up and took the papers. As I read through them, I realized he had signed over all of his personal property to me, and even a majority of his company shares. When I reached the last page, I saw the date the agreement was originally drafted, 10 years ago, right after we were married. A tremor went through me. I was speechless, tears blurring my vision as I looked up at him, completely bewildered. Leo pulled a chair to my bedside. "When we got married," he began, his voice cracking, "we had nothing. But you still married me. I swore to myself then that I would give you everything I ever earned. I never, ever thought we would divorce, which is why I had this drawn up so long ago. I thought that if, one day," his voice broke, and he wiped at his eyes, "if one day we did split, it would have to be my fault. I didn't know if the company would succeed, but I knew that win or lose, I didn't want you to lose. It seems fate had it all planned out," he said with a bitter smile. "Lena, I do love you. I just don't know how to love someone. You always said I was thinking about her, but I can barely remember her face anymore. Since you asked for a divorce, I haven't had a single night of sleep. I know now that I love you. Lena, please, can you give me one more chance? A chance to take care of you properly." He cautiously reached for my hand again. I flinched, pulling my fingers back. His hand froze in midair. Tears were streaming down my face. I wanted to reach out, to wipe the tears from his eyes. But then, I felt a faint flutter in my womb. The child. The memories of all the forgotten birthdays, Zoe's triumphant posts, the lies, they all came rushing back. I forced myself to speak. "The problem is," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "I don't love you anymore." The color drained from Leo's face. He fumbled in his pocket and pulled something out. "This was your birthday present," he said, his voice thick. "You always said you wanted one." It was a custom-made Russian doll, the largest one painted to look exactly like me, with a round, pregnant belly. I looked at it and laughed until the tears flowed freely. The lawyers began processing the paperwork based on that 10-year-old agreement, turning the hospital room into a makeshift office. A familiar tapping sound approached. I looked up to see Leo's mother. The moment she entered the room, she raised her cane and brought it down hard on Leo's back. "You ungrateful boy. I'll beat you. You had such a wonderful wife and you didn't cherish her, running around with other women," she cried, her voice trembling with rage. "Now look. You've driven her away. I'm telling you, if Lena leaves you, then I don't want you as a son either." Her blind eyes were red and swollen from crying. As she raised her cane again, I quickly spoke up. "Mom, don't blame him. It's just, we're not right for each other." Hearing my voice, she fumbled her way to my bedside. I thought with the baby, you two would reconcile." She touched my face gently. "For you to be this determined, that boy must have done something truly terrible. My heart aches for you, my child." My own tears started again. "Mom, it's not his fault. We were wrong from the very beginning. We're just correcting a mistake now. Please don't be angry, it's not good for your health." She sighed, a long, weary sound. "It's my fault too. I didn't raise him right." She held my hand, looking at me intently. "Lena, have you truly made up your mind?" I nodded. I expected her to try and persuade me, but instead, she patted my hand. "A woman should leave a marriage where she is unhappy. It's the right thing to do. I don't blame you." I threw my arms around her, burying my face in her shoulder, a single, choked word escaping my lips. "Mom." She stroked my hair, and then, with trembling hands, she pulled several old passbooks from her pocket. "This is my life savings. It's not much, but it's for you. Take it. Please, take it and live a good life. I tried to refuse, but she pressed them firmly into my hand. You have no parents. When you married Leo, I became your mother. It's my failure. That our bond has to be broken like this. He wronged you. This is my apology to you. You must take it, if not for yourself, then for the child. I took the passbooks, warm from her grasp, and for the first time, the thought of divorcing him wavered. I stared numbly towards the door, where shadows flickered. Leo excused himself and stepped outside. I wanted some fresh air, so a nurse and my mother-in-law helped me out of the room. Just as we stepped into the hallway, I saw Leo, looking utterly exhausted, talking to Zoe. Zoe spotted me. She strode towards me on her impossibly high heels, her face a mask of triumphant glee. She shoved a piece of paper at me. The nurse caught it before it hit the floor and handed it to me. It was a lab report. I'm pregnant too, Lena, she announced, her eyes wild. I'm pregnant. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a near hysterical whisper. That divorce agreement is void. My child has a right to his assets too. That tiny flicker of doubt I'd felt vanished into thin air. I looked at Leo, who seemed to be on the verge of exploding. Do you need to redraft the agreement? I asked calmly. I can walk away with nothing. No, Leo said, rubbing his temples and bending down to speak to me, his voice suddenly gentle. No, we don't need to change a thing. I turned and walked away. A moment later, I heard a man's suppressed roar of fury, the sound of a woman falling, and then a heart-wrenching scream. My baby! You killed my baby! My mother-in-law began to wail, a cry of pure anguish for the grandchild she would never know. I didn't stop. I kept walking towards the warm glow of the setting sun. Even in autumn, it felt warm on my skin. I think I had finally walked out of the shadows. It was time to say goodbye to the past 10 years. I received my divorce certificate on the same day my water broke. I was already in the hospital for monitoring, so they rushed me straight into the delivery room. After a day and a night of labor, my child was born. A son. I called Leo to tell him. Even over the phone, I could hear his uncontainable joy. He immediately wanted to come and see the baby, but I refused. The baby is too small, and I'm too tired. I don't have the energy for visitors right now. When I'm feeling better, you can bring your mother to visit. The joy in his voice froze. Okay, he said after a long pause. Okay, then. I'll wait until you're rested. I stopped caring about Leo. I answered his calls when I felt like it, opened the door to his knocks when I was in the mood. I knew he was hiding on the street corner sometimes, just to catch a glimpse of the baby, but it didn't bother me. He was a stranger to me now, and I had no energy to spare for a stranger. The person I couldn't seem to shake, however, was Zoe. She found out where I lived and started following me. On several occasions, she tried to grab the baby while I was trying on clothes in a department store. Thankfully, my nanny was always quick enough to snatch him back. For my son's safety, I finally called the police. At the station, she called Leo. When Leo heard she had tried to take my son, his expression didn't even flicker. He walked over and slapped her so hard she fell to the floor. Didn't I tell you? He snarled, his voice dangerously low. Stay away from her. And especially stay away from the child. Zoe looked terrible. Her once smooth skin was sallow and dull. She lay on the floor, tears and snot smearing her face, her eyes filled with a venomous hatred as she looked at me. Why? Why did her baby get to be born while mine is gone? Why? She screamed. It's not fair. It's not fair. I handed my son to the nanny and knelt in front of her. The world has its own sense of balance, I said softly. You may have lost a child. But didn't you get Leo? During my convalescence, I had heard that Zoe had moved into the Lee family home and was living as Mrs. Lee. Her eyes were bloodshot. You're just jealous. Jealous that I have his love. I stood up, tired of her nonsense. She lunged and grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin, leaving angry red marks. I took Leo's phone from his hand, opened his photo gallery, and navigated to a hidden, locked album. It took me a while, but I had figured out the password. I found a blurry, old photograph and held the screen in front of Zoe's face. "You weren't his first affair," I told her quietly. "But you are the one who looks the most like her. Let me tell you a secret, Zoe. Leo doesn't love you. He doesn't love me. He doesn't love anyone but himself." Zoe stared at the picture of Clara, her hand trembling as she held the phone. Then she began to laugh, a wild, unhinged sound that filled the sterile room. Leo pulled me away. He looked gaunt, his cheeks hollowed out, a shadow of the handsome young man I once knew. "Don't listen to her," he said. "She's been like this ever since she lost the baby. She's not well." I looked at him and smiled, placing his phone back in his hand. "From now on, you can look at these old photos whenever you want. No need to hide them in a locked album anymore." He stared at me, his expression unreadable. "You knew the password. It was her birthday, wasn't it?" I took my son and walked out. We moved the next day, leaving the city behind. Before the car pulled away, I took one last look back at the city skyline. In the distance, I thought I saw a dark, solitary figure watching us go. I pulled my son closer and settled into my seat. At that moment, I knew I was finally, truly, saying goodbye to the first half of my life.